All right, guys, today we're going to be talking about graphing linear inequalities. Earlier in the year, we talked about inequalities and how those are helpful for real life scenarios when there's more than just one exact answer. So if I were to say the speed limit, for example, if the speed limit is 65, that means that I can drive 64, 63, 62, 61, 60. All of those values would be fine because it's less than 65. Now then, whenever I start driving greater than 65, that's whenever it's breaking the law. And so I can't do that. So 65 isn't the only speed I can go. I can go values lower than that, but I can't go higher than that. So those were simple inequalities. And what we're going to be doing today is graphing linear inequalities. So we're going to be graphing a line, but then shading either above or below that line to talk about ordered pairs that can be a solution to that inequality. Hopefully you've already copied the steps down. There were a lot of steps today. There were 7. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to use those steps to walk through how to graph a linear inequality. If you've got graph paper, now's a great time to get that out. Just because whenever we're dealing with this, we're going to need to be as exact as possible. That way our lines are straight and we can see what's a solution and what's not. Okay, so let's get started. On my first line, I've got the example y less than or equal to, remember you read them from left to right. If the smaller side of the inequality is on the left, that's a less than. If it opens to the right, that's a greater than. So y less than or equal to 2/5 x minus 1. So one thing that I like to do is I like to identify my y-intercept and identify my slope first thing. So this is going to be my y-intercept. That's my slope. First step is to plot your y-intercept directly on your y-axis. So I'm going to go down 1, make a dot. Next step, from there, do rise over run with your slope. So we're going to go up 2 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to be able to go over 5 anymore. So what I can do is the opposite of what I just did. Instead of going up to right 5, I can go down to left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That gave me at least 3 points on the graph. The reason I said 3 points is that's enough to kind of get you a feel for the line. But as you'll see in the examples that we're going to do today, I like to take it as far as the graph will let me take it. So now we have to figure out if it's going to be a solid line or a dashed line. The way that I remember that, if they have a solid line underneath their inequality symbol, that means I'm going to have a solid line as well. If they do not have a solid line, like example 2 here in just a moment, it does not have that solid line underneath it, that means it's going to be a dashed line. Since this one does have the equal to line, it's going to be a solid line. So here we go trying to make straight lines. So there is the line in and of itself. Since it's an inequality, we're going to have some shading. If it were just an equal to, y equals 2/5 x minus 1, we'd be finished. But what this is saying is it wants all of the y's less than this line. So let's take it back to our y-intercept right here at -1. Give me some y values that would be less than -1, like -2, -5, -10. Where are those things at? They're all down here, right? So what that's telling me is everything below that line would be shaded. And that's how we can tell. Okay? So let's look at another example. Y less than 2x plus 3. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to identify my slope and my y-intercept. There's my slope. There's my y-intercept. I notice that my slope is a whole number, and I know that here in just a moment I'm going to need rise over run. So what I can do is put that over 1 to make it a fraction. First step is plot your y-intercept directly on your y-axis. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, make a dot. From there, I'm going to do rise over run with my slope as far as the graph will let me go. So I'm going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. I went a little bit off the graph there, but not too far. Since I ran out of graph, I can go the opposite direction as well. I can go down to left 1, down 2, left 1, down 2, left 1, down 2, left 1, down 2, left 1. And there I'm finally out of room. So now I have to decide, is it going to be a solid line or a dashed line? I look right here at my inequality symbol. Since they do not have a solid line underneath, mine is not going to be a solid line either. It's going to be a dashed line. So, does it have to be beautiful? What I do is I kind of take my point and just draw a little dash coming from that. And so there is my line. So how do we decide the y's less than that? Take it back to your y-intercept. Here's my y-intercept right here at positive 3. So if I were to cover up my x's, that gets me to my y-intercept. What are some y's less than 3? 0, -2, -7. Where are those numbers on the y-axis? Well, there's 0, there's -2, -7 would be somewhere down here. So notice how that's everything below this line. So that means all of this side of the line would be shaded. Okay? A lot of times you'll hear above the line, below the line. That gets really difficult the more steep that line is. That's why I always take it back to the y-intercept. So after you graph your line, go back to the y-intercept and pick what it's telling you to do. Cover up those x's and pick y's less than 3, or here in just a moment, we're going to explore some that are greater than, okay? So if you need to, go ahead and pause this video. That way you can make sure that you're getting these examples copied down into your notebook, and then you can restart it with our next 2. I'm actually going to use these same graphs for our bottom 2 examples. So now I'm going to be graphing this line and this line up on these graphs, okay? I don't want to confuse anybody. So I'll kind of scribble that out because we don't want you to think I'm graphing those lines again. So we're graphing these 2 lines down here, okay? So this line says y is greater than -x plus 4. So whenever I see that -x, I know that there is a 1 right there in front of that x. Since it's not a fraction, I can put it over 1 to make it a fraction. We always want our slope to be a fraction since it's rise over run. There's my slope. There's my y-intercept. Plot your y-intercept directly on your y-axis. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 and make a dot. My slope is -1 over 1. Whenever I think of negative slope, I know that it's going to be going downhill. That's kind of another way to check yourself. So -1 means I go down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. And I could keep going until I ran out of graph. I can also go the other direction. I can go up 1, left 1, up 1, left 1 until I run out of graph. Now I have to decide, is it going to be a solid line or a dashed line? Looking here, they do not have a solid line underneath their inequality symbol, so I'm not going to have a solid line either. It's going to be a dashed line. So you can kind of connect those points a little bit to make it look like a dashed line. Now for the shading. Always take it back to your y-intercept. It just makes it a little bit easier. If I cover up those x's, I want the y's greater than 4. Give me some examples of y's greater than 4, like 5, 6, 10. Here's where y is 4. The numbers greater than that are going to be up here. So that means everything on this side of the line is going to be shaded. Let's do one more together. If I look at y greater than or equal to -1/2 x minus 3. Here's my slope. There's my y-intercept. Remember, the sign in front always goes with that number. So my y-intercept is -3. So I'm going to go to my y-axis and go down 1, 2, 3, make a dot. From there, I do rise over run with my slope. My slope is already a fraction, so I don't have to turn it into 1. Since it's negative, once again, that means your line is going to be going downhill. So I'm going to go down 1, right 2. Down 1, right 2. Down 1, right 2. I can also go up 1, left 2. up 1, left 2. Sorry, I didn't think I went left 2. Up 1, left 2. Since they have a solid line underneath their inequality symbol, I'm going to have a solid line as well. Now for the shading. If I want the y's greater than -3, just on my y-axis, y's greater than -3. Well, here's -3. What are some y values greater than -3? Like 0, +3, some things like that. Notice how all those are up here. So that means everything up here is going to be shaded. Take some time, guys. If this is difficult for you, rewatch the video, read through your notes one more time. Make sure that you're copying these down and attaching them to our Google form. And then on your workout sheet, you'll do the same thing. Kind of sketch your graphs, and then you'll pick the multiple choice one that looks correct. See ya.